Now, you're probably very aware that, well, I love watches. I have a channel talking about watches. I spend a lot of my thoughts and time with watches, but it's not my only passion in life. Another passion that I do have is travel. I love to travel. I love going worldwide traveling. I like traveling within Australia. And whenever I do travel, I am now finding that I am putting some time and energy into doing some watch-related travel. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James. You're watching me. And I am talking about watches. And what am I talking about? Well, actually two separate parts to this. Going traveling specifically to do watch-related stuff, which I haven't quite done yet. But more secondly, what I'm actually been doing is involving some watch stuff in amongst travels, and that's what I did just recently. Recently, I went on a trip over to the other side of the country to see family, and amongst that, I knew that I wanted to do one particular thing. I wanted to attend Noosa. Noosa is a small beachside town, a couple of 100 kilometres north of Brisbane. It's a beautiful town, has lots of sunshine and surf and some nice, lovely boutiques and restaurants. But there is one thing that was there that I wanted to make sure that I experienced. Because I've been to Noosa before, it's a nice little town, it's lovely to go for lunch, and I knew that it was only around about an hour's drive from my father's property, but there was something that I hadn't done there previously, and that was attend a particular watch store. A store that had been there for some time, but I just hadn't been aware of it until I learnt about it through actually another YouTuber from Australia. And when I saw his videos about the store at Noosa, I thought, I have to go there next time I'm in the area. So I specifically went there for a day trip from my father's house, and I went to Define Watches. And I wanted to go there for, well, one real specific reason. I wanted to go there to see the different watches that they had on offer. And it wasn't just that I just wanted to go to a store that had watches for me to look at. I do that a lot, and I'm perfectly fine doing that. But Define Watches is something a little bit different, a little bit unique, and something that I just can't do almost anywhere else. And that is see some very amazing and incredible independent brands. Brands which I just would not be able to get hands-on experience with anywhere else unless I just happen to meet somebody that happens to own one of these independent watches. And I did a little bit of research before getting there, knowing that there would be a couple of brands that I wanted to get a little bit hands-on experience with, but what I didn't expect was for the sheer range of watches. But I don't think I quite grasped the range of watches that they have on offer and the amounts of the different models within the ranges that they have. Because Define Watches stocks watches from Sinn, from Damasco, but then there's also Hanhart and Habring and Dornbluth and Sun and Benzinger and some brands that I'd never actually heard of, others that I'd seen pictures of and that I thought, wow, that looks quite amazing, and others that I'd seriously considered buying, but because I hadn't had that opportunity to get hands-on with them, that it made me a little bit nervous. So getting to see them in person, getting to handle these watches was really important to me. But what I also didn't quite expect was just such a great experience in the shop. Meeting Peter and Lydia was a game changer for me. I've had some great previous experience at watch shops, watch boutiques before, but nothing like this. Because Peter and Lydia not only own the shop and run the shop, and have the knowledge about their watches, but they have relationships with these independent brands, and that allows for more information, more depth to their understanding about these watches, and they were more than happy to share that information and their knowledge with me. And to see the excitement and the understanding of these watches from the slightly more affordable watches like the Sinn and the Damasco, watches that are around about 1,800 Australian dollars, all the way through to these handcrafted marvels of watches that I was looking at and feeling that were well over $100,000 was amazing to see. There was a passion for this independent brands beyond just a luxury watch. And it really then translated through as I was talking to both of them. And as I was there looking at these amazing watches that I'd only seen in pictures before or watched videos on YouTube before, I was getting a bit more of an understanding about the watches, the brand, how they worked together, how they overlapped. Something else stood out to me. And as Peter was showing me these watches, as he was describing the brands, as he was talking about his interactions with them and his understanding of how they worked, what they did, their hands-on with these watches, something clicked for me. Something that I was sort of aware of, something that I'd seen other people do, something that I'd sort of thought perhaps should be something that I should dive down into a little bit more, but it's something that just hadn't quite clicked inside my mind. And that was this, I think, slight misconception I had in my mind, because as I looked at these amazing independent watches, the more expensive versions of them that were within the store, my mind just kept thinking they were completely outside of my price range. And some of them definitely were completely outside of my price range. But as I looked at them, as I experienced them, as I then became more aware of the prices, I started to realize that there's a lot of them that are actually within my grasp, or at least within my grasp in the future. And I started to have this thought. I started to think, well, I'm working towards a Grail watch. There's some Grail watches that I like, watches like Grand Seikos or Omegas or whatever it happens to be. But some of these independent watches that I was handling that were just exploding my mind were the same price, or at least very similar priced. And now I sort of understand. This is where this little click occurred in my mind. Why would I be working towards a Grand Seiko, a watch which is beautiful, which I like, when in fact I could own one of these independent watches? I was handling the Benzinger, and this is when it all happened for me. I realized that this is something special. I now understand why so many people that I've met over the years in watches have really sort of shifted their collecting towards the independents. It's not just because they are somewhat achievable luxury, it's because they're something special. And it just goes so far beyond perceived value for money, because that's great, and I do appreciate getting a value for money proposition, but that's not the reason why I buy watches. But when I saw these watches, especially those Benzingers, I thought, wow, that actually could be a watch that could enter my collection, rather than some of these other watches that I've previously been thinking about. So I want to say really a big thank you to Peter and Lydia for both welcoming me into their shop, giving me their time to share their knowledge and the watches and the passion that they have for their brands, but also for opening my eyes a little bit. I had previously considered a couple of these watches, but until I actually then got hands-on with them and really understood the stories behind them and the craftsmanship that's attached to them, and just how affordable some of them are in perspective of luxury watches, that I now sort of understand that perhaps that's the reason why I have never previously bought a Grail watch for myself. There's always been something holding me back, and maybe this is the reason why. If you happen to ever be in Queensland, within Australia, in the Noosa area, go to Define Watches. Get hands-on with a couple of these watches, talk to Peter and Lydia, and get a bit of an understanding about why independent watches are actually so important and so amazing. I just have to now start saving and refining the list of the watches that they have on offer to find the one that is right for me, both from a price perspective, but also from a Grail perspective. And I foresee that happening in my future. Thank you so much for watching. Certainly do appreciate it. Perhaps you might want to watch one of these videos next.